To club training for all the news on injury and form.
Are you going to order a drink or not?
Don't think so, Ron.
Paying customers only.
Footy Focus, 6:30 Thursday on Sports AFL. It was history in the making as Port Adelaide turned on the power against Geelong last Friday night. Its first win as an AFL entity, who knows what glory awaits this football powerhouse. While the new chum soared, St Kilda hit back hard. A week of soul-searching turned the Saints from villains to heroes. The halo sheen has been restored. And the Bombers flexed their sizable muscle against the reigning premier. Driven by last year's heartbreaking finals, they remain the only unbeaten side in the land. Sheedy's men already shaped as a formidable force.
Hello everyone, and thanks for joining us on our round 3 edition of Football Feedback. I'm Peter Donegan. Well, while the Bombers are flying high, one of their bitter enemies, Carlton, won its first game for the season when it overcame a determined Adelaide, even if it was in a somewhat unfamiliar strip at Optus Oval yesterday. Later on, we'll be joined by Carlton Chief Executive Stephen Gough. We'll also be talking to Brisbane midfielder Adrian Fletcher, whose side has found the going a little tough through the early stages of the year. As usual, we'll have a full review of what's been another incredibly busy round, and with the Tribunal deliberating over 7 charges tonight, Rob Gaylard will be on hand to bring us the news as it breaks. But before any of that, it's my pleasure to once again welcome 5 times premiership player Dermot Brereton.
Good evening, Scoop.
You've been a busy boy over the weekend.
Yes, I've been to a couple of games, and what with the Triple M commitments as well, I've seen more footy than I've actually played over the last 10 years.
Did you enjoy the Sports AFL games on the weekend?
Oh, they're fantastic. You get to, it's a slightly different way of calling the football. It's very enjoyable because it's actually like, obviously with Gary Lyon and Craig Kelly, they know their games inside out, and you get to talk about the footy as it unfolds. It's self-explanatory when you're watching it, but just little things that happen, why they happened, and the boys put in their little 2 bobs worth and bring it to you properly.
Also joining us tonight, as usual, Sunday Age Chief Football writer Rohan Connolly, and you'd be a happy lad at the moment.
Pretty good weekend. I saw Collingwood get run over and I saw Essendon win. It doesn't get a lot better, frankly.
And the other big story of the weekend, I suppose, was Port Power's first win.
Oh, it was an amazing performance. I think very few of us really expect them to win any more than 2 or 3 games. I think in light of that form, you've really got to reassess the target for them now. I think probably 6 isn't out of the question.
I was very surprised they all knew the theme song.
Isn't it a good theme song too? Unlike the Dockers and some of the other newer club theme songs, this one's a ripper. It's a real rollicking sort of rally round the flag boys type thing.
Not everyone knew the theme song, but we'll be coming to that a little bit later on. Now, as Rohan said, it was a fabulous game between St Kilda and Collingwood at Waverley Park on Saturday in front of a big crowd. And there was plenty of physicality in this match, as they like to say. Both sides went in very hard, no beg pardons. No. And this is often the case in Collingwood-St Kilda matches.
There's certainly a touch of the 70s about it, and you're quite right. I mean, seems to be a bit of rivalry between the 2 clubs stretching back a while now. I've certainly covered a few fiery St Kilda-Collingwood clashes over the years, but a couple of talking points, I suppose, the Stuart Lowe, Scott Burns and the Nicky Winmar, Shane Watson incidents, but just good, tough, hard, physical football. And a lot of people after the game were invoking memories of the 70s, and it did have that sort of feel about it.
Oh, I think it's just a little bit too much claret actually got going, and other than that, it's pretty standard. It was good fun though. It's a good game to watch, very entertaining.
Did you find in your experience against certain sides that you would just put in that extra 2% effort against certain sides and that it was going to be physical?
Absolutely, there's no doubt about that, and saw Burnsy there throw his arm back for, which he is up to face the Tribunal tomorrow night. There we go here.
It's a very interesting one, this. I mean, when we all saw it at the ground at the time, we all thought it was totally accidental. Looking on replay, it's clearly not accidental, but I think maybe you have to cut him a bit of slack because he doesn't know where Lowe's heading.
Oh, look, there's no doubt he could, and he's a tough little nut, Burnsy, too. Look at him there. If he could, he'd go on with it no matter who he was having a crack at then. But, yeah, Pete, there is no doubt. You have a little bit of bad blood for certain teams, and that's just the way. And there's one man you just would not want to go, Damien Monkhurst. I mean, even if he didn't touch it, just looking at that head would give you nightmares for the next few weeks, wouldn't
You're not going to make it look any worse, though, by having a go at it.
Is it possible a rivalry like that could date back to something like the '66 grand final, given that a lot of those players weren't even born when that happened? Or does it go back to this clash last year?
Well, definitely it could go back to... that's a beautiful shepherd, actually, isn't it? It would go back the previous year, or maybe, you know, when the same personnel is still on hand. But no, it doesn't go back as far as out of your era. A lot of the clubs try and instill to players, you know, this is the history, this is how it's happened and whatever, but no, just the current players.
Although a lot of it's recent history, isn't it? Even going back to that final when St Kilda put Collingwood out in '92 after Collingwood had finished equal on points on top. You know, I mean, there was a bit of, not sour grapes, but there was an element of bad luck about that. And what was interesting after the game is Tony Shaw didn't put much stock in the you know, the record in recent seasons, but I know Stan Alves did. He really stressed to the players during the week that Collingwood was the side they were quite capable of beating and did beat. So it's different how it's funny how the two teams looked at the situation.
That is true. There's a lot of teams you play, and I know over the years you have certain beliefs, and some teams would say if we can attack this team, this specific team, like we have over the last 4 or 5 years, at the body or beat them in the air or just this certain aspect, we will go a long way to beating this team regardless of where their positions are on the ladder. So they do have those trains of thought about them.
Well, Hawthorn-Essendon in the mid-'80s, I mean, you guys certainly pumped yourselves up for those ones.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Yeah.
One of the most talked about incidents on the weekend was the clash between Winmar and Watson. Now, I think most people came away expecting there'd be a video report out of this, but when you look at it closely, I think they've made the right decision in not reporting here.
Well, I won't say anything because Nicky's a reasonable friend of mine, and there's definitely no elbow lifted. But look, if we can ask the boys on short notice upstairs to freeze frame it as soon as Watson takes the mark. He's taken 4 paces, admittedly there's a couple little there, Winmar's taken 3 or 4. There is a safe zone. Once you mark the ball, there is a safe zone in football, and Winmar was perhaps 6-7 metres away and perhaps came into that safe zone. That's where the contact is. If we can actually go back, we might probably asking a bit more on short notice. Well, we'll do that. And if you go into that safe zone, you're golden. You shouldn't be touched. Right, 1, 2, and he's on the 3rd. So he's taken two large steps while running. Winmar's taken, so it's probably about 5-6 metres away, and he's entered that safe zone. So, I mean, the 50 metres was there. That's all I'm saying at the moment. And the ridiculous thing about that was if the 50 metres is awarded, McDonald came in, pushed, they reversed the decision. I'd imagine automatically that 50 metres has been awarded. What they do if they reverse it, that situation, they take the 50 metres off them, and you still have the kick. So they've given 2 reversal situations for the 1 misdemeanor by McDonald. So a bit of common sense needed to be orchestrated there, but I don't think there was definitely nothing malicious about it. He just came in a little bit late.
It was certainly a 50, no doubt about that. But I think, I mean, that's what the 50's for, isn't it? It's for not only time wasting, it's for those sort of things like the charge and stuff. And looking at the replay clearly shows he tried to keep his elbow in, and they clashed heads, which caused the bleeding. And one of the things that happens, and it's unfortunate, but I don't know how you avoid it, is often at big games like that, when there is an incident like that, a guy comes off with a lot of blood. The bloke who causes the blood to be spilled ends up being vilified for the rest of the day. I'm not sure Winmar deserved to cop what he copped.
Yeah, if there hadn't been that much blood, probably not much, or not so much, would have been made of the incident.
Well, that's...
might have been your blood capsules again.
For sure, yeah.
Now, this might have harked back to an incident earlier in the first quarter between Winmar and Watson. Watch this. At the other end of the ground, and you can see here that Watson had Winmar in the sights, didn't quite get him, But maybe Nicky put that in the memory bank.
Yeah, I'd say there'd be no doubt about that. Look, he's actually got his eye on it. He's turned his head away from there. I don't think Shane... Knowing Shane, he's definitely not a timid player. He goes at the ball, but he definitely has not got the nastiness in his body that some player, in his psyche, has to play in the game that some players have. So I just think that's a bit of an accident there. But I think the Winmar one could be overrated if people say have a good, long, hard look at it. It's just best not to say too much in case they do.
Yeah, fair enough. Now, it seems to be an almost weekly occurrence that we sit here and talk about Corey McKernan's knee, and again, we've got a problem.
Yeah, we've definitely got some abnormality there. I mean, I know they're not in succession, but he came off, what was the preliminary last year?
Yep.
Doubtful for the final, and they said no, he was fine, and then they ended up playing him and having an operation thereafter. It's round 3 now, and he's had well, 2 goes at the knees also.
Well, he did actually tear a cartilage in that preliminary final, which he ended up having surgery for. But you're right, I mean, he went off in the first game against Melbourne, which we think was the other knee. But what would worry him more about Sunday is that it's the same knee that he's hurt, appears to be the same knee that he's hurt in the preliminary final. Just the mere fact that he's had to go off 3 times in the last 5 games in which he's played, and the fact that every time he does take a bit of a knock, there seems to be this concern. So
he must be pretty light on in the knee department, because his quads, he's got amazing quad development, and anyone would know that the bigger your quads are, the better chance you have of holding them all together.
Here's the incident in the preliminary final, and that was just banging knees together with Clark there. But do you think that maybe if this wasn't round 3, if we were talking about towards the end of the season, that they might put him under the knife and see if there's any problem there?
Look, I think that the decision of whether they have a little exploratory there is definitely affected by the fact that Wayne Carey's not there. Otherwise, I think if they were smooth sailing and Wayne was out there, I think they'd take that liberty.
although you'd think if there was some sort of inherent weakness or something like that, that when he had the surgery after the grand final, they might have fixed it up then.
Yeah, but Rohan, you're talking about a football club here who don't pay a lot of credence to people's, you know, general health. If you can get them out there, at 80% fit, the champions, you do so and you worry about it later.
Well, what needs to be said is he certainly didn't let him down yesterday. He took about 13 marks and he was just fantastic.
And that goal he kicked over his shoulder, I'm sure we'll see that a bit later on. Now, you've been on the blower. What's the latest on the rest of the injuries?
Well, there's a few to talk about, but, well, we just mentioned McKernan. Sean Smith's another one who's been causing a bit of problems for Melbourne. He actually got knocked out by a teammate, Jimmy Steins. You'll just see it here. And it's a bit hard to pick up, but just on the way through there. He's actually hurt his knee with that. They're calling it a grade 2 medial ligament tear, which is on the lesser side of serious. And at this stage, I don't think he'll need surgery, but he could miss up to somewhere between 4 and 6 weeks.
So they'll just immobilise the knee and place it in one of those big straight jackets,
Yeah, I saw Darren Burek with one of them yesterday. They're pretty bulky contraptions, aren't they?
He got the double whammy in this one too, because he got concussion as well, courtesy of Jimmy Steins.
At least he wasn't feeling the pain of the knee then. Pump him full of painkiller before he wakes up.
He's, I don't know whether it's just bad luck or what, but boy, he's copped a bit in his fairly short league career, hasn't he?
Actually, that's, well, he has been pretty unlucky. I mean, leaving North Melbourne in the early days, but he's made a great comeback. I'm just thinking of that. If he was totally out cold, put him on the stretcher because he's out cold, how would you know he's done a knee in that instance while he's lying out, you know, with the tongue hanging out the side of the head until he woke up? You might just throw him on there and look after him, but he could have been laying the knee.
Well, just right and try and tip him off at the end of the race, isn't he? He might have gone down like a bag of
spades.
spades.
It might have given it a bit more of a tweak when they took him off the boundary line.
Could be a job for Rudy Webster. We might have to bring him back and he could read their mind.
Well, Melbourne's probably the only league club Rudy Webster hasn't worked for, so it might be an idea.
What about the other injuries, Rohan? Sean McManus?
Sean McManus looks like he's gone for the year. That'll be a full reconstruction, so that's shocking luck for them. He really is one of their 2 or 3 best young players, I think.
Same pocket as Djakovic when he went down in a similar fashion. I know, no
the Bermuda
correlation.
Triangle effect.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Now, Darryl White dislocated his kneecap, didn't he?
Yeah, now that's potentially a very serious one. At the moment, they're waiting on results of scans. I'll get tomorrow morning, Brisbane, but at the moment, they reckon it's a strained patella tendon. That actually is the ligament that holds your kneecap in place. At the very best, he'll miss 4. Could miss 6, but as I said, if the scan results come back tomorrow and they do show something else, that'll be much longer term than that. And if they lose him, they're in a bit of trouble.
And Scotty Wind?
Scotty Wind has had a screw or a pin or some metallic object put in his hand, and they're talking about 1 week, but probably 2 with him.
So he'll play, but Jared Healy retires for that.
I'm not getting into that one.
I'm only serious.
Medical technology's come a long way since Jared Healy's playing days, do.
Now, with all of these injuries, maybe there is a case. Kevin Sheedy was the first coach to come out and say it, and Mick Malthouse appears to have joined the throng now to talk about more players on the interchange bench. This is what Mick Malthouse said after the game, and he said that he had no confidence in the AFL's decision-making in that regard whatsoever.
He wouldn't be the first person to say that, would he?
No. Well, does he have a case, and does Sheedy have a case?
Well, I think so. I mean, it seems to be a gathering bandwagon. Sheeds has been pushing this one for 15 years, but what you certainly don't want is to get to a situation where a grand final is decided because a team's lost too many injured players. And it nearly happened to you guys in '89.
But isn't that the nature of the sport? I mean, the game is, it's a body contact game, but it's an endurance game, and the attrition rate is the nature of the game almost, you know. It is body contact. Are we taking out that aspect of it whatsoever, like Americanising it, where, hey, we need somebody here? If you've got 8 people on the bench, what a luxury, and it's just up to basically what you can piece together in terms of, well, mobilising your troops who are all on hand. You're always going to have fit players, but it's something really special when you see a team, well, they've got somebody going back out there because he's a little bit sore or whatever, and they get up. I find that very inspirational.
Well, the number is obviously critical, isn't it? I mean, 8 is ridiculous. I think even 6 is a lot too many because you are altering fundamentally the conditions of the match. But I think 1 extra probably wouldn't hurt. And I guess the point that Sheedy makes on this one is probably valid, is because there's, you know, no second prize, playing for keeps, all that stuff. I think there's probably a greater chance that someone might be taken out illegitimately, as you yourself probably know, in a grand final and in another match.
But that's the risk you take. I mean, you've got same
But you
same old
you don't want a side to win a premiership through those means, though, do you?
Well, I don't know.
Whatever it takes.
Absolutely.
Now, that's during the finals, but Sheeds wanted to change it after about round 15 as well. I mean, can you change rules midstream?
Well, he can. He comes up with a new one every week. But no, look, I think it's something... but this one's been on the drawing board for a while, and I think it's one of the more important rule changes. I mean, forget about flags on the goalposts and everything. This is the one we need to clear up one way or the other pretty soon, I think.
I'll tell you one thing that I think a lot of people think needs to be cleared up too is the 50-metre penalty. Now, the interpretation of this certainly seems to have changed, gentlemen, compared to last year. Look at those stats. They're pretty telling.
It's amazing. And the really interesting thing on Saturday at St Kilda Collingwood, I reckon there were 4 or 5 probably even in the first half. It was very noticeable, and of course everyone immediately said, well, that's this week's memo, obviously. And I've got a real problem with that, this sort of memo thing and the constant changing of interpretation from week to week. There should be a set of rules agreed upon at the start of the year, or the interpretations agreed upon, and that should be it, surely, so that everyone's playing under the same conditions for 6 months. This week-to-week clampdown on certain items, and it was interesting that this 50-metre penalty spate last weekend followed a newspaper column during the week suggesting that there hadn't been many 50-metre penalties given.
Was that by Commissioner Sheehan?
It was by Commissioner Sheehan. I wasn't going to mention his name or his paper, but seeing you have. And just sounded a little bit funny to me.
Dan, what do you think? Where are they lenient now? Is it the scragging after the players taken the mark? They're giving them a lot more leniency there?
As you say, it goes in sort of waves, you know, whatever. I mean, players are acclimatised to umpires' decisions, and it's almost like umpires are acclimatised to each other. The bloke down the other end of the ground hasn't paid that one. I've got to keep it even. I won't pay this one, and it just snowballs from there. I don't know whether either that or they get a directive from David Levins or the likes of the head honchos up there in the white man's outfit, so in the white outfit, not the white man's
outfit. I mean, my point is, how many other sports in the world are there where you see that dramatic a change in the refereeing of the game from week to week?
But that's the nature of our game. You get a contest wherever the ball goes after the bounce down. The rules in the other games don't change because there's an offside rule. We've got no offside, so it
just gives us more opportunity to get stuck into them anyway.
Yeah. A lot of randomness in our game, you know, with rules. And I mean, people come to me and they say, "I'm just learning AFL. I've just come to the country and find it hard for the rules." And I said, "Don't worry, there's blokes out there playing that find it hard with the rules as well." So
now we've already spoken about the fact that Kevin Sheedy comes up with a few ideas from time to time. He came up with one the other day where he sent the 20 players to various areas of the ground to salute the fans. But also, it might be only round 3, but it appears as though the mind games have probably already started. He had a bit to say about North Melbourne, and it upset Dennis Pagan. This is what Kevin Sheedy had to say.
The North looked a bit tired, coming off a couple of wet weather games. I watched both of them against Melbourne and also Carlton. Juggling Monday football is going to be difficult if you're coming and playing on the next weekend.
All right, well, that was Kevin Sheedy in the post-match media conference. Now, whether or not he was playing mind games, I suppose that's up to you to decide, but Dennis Pagan certainly thought he was. And when he was advised of Kevin Sheedy's comments, this is what the Premiership coach had to say.
The fact that you played 2 games in really shocking conditions, do you think that had...
No, Essendon was just too good on it. Yeah, too good on the day. The last time we won is Kevin Sheedy patronising North Melbourne, I can assure you.
Now, these blokes have worked together. Of course, Dennis was the reserves coach at Essendon in '92, so they know each other pretty well.
Getting a little carried away, I think, Dennis, for mine. I mean, really, I was at the game. It seemed like a perfectly legitimate observation. I mean, they did look a bit flat and they did look a bit tired. And he could have, I mean, there is a possibility of psychological warfare. There's also the possibility Kevin Sheedy was just making a fairly obvious observation.
Yeah, the 2 points to raise here that I think Sheedy's got a very good case point there. It's well documented through history that if you've got a close game in the wet against class opposition, even if you get over them, you really have a blinder the next week. And also the psychological warfare, that's sort of falling by the wayside a little bit. You motivate your players before the game and it's up to them to get the ball when they're out on the ground. No matter what gets written in the paper, what the opposition says, it's still up to you to get the ball out on the ground.
It's almost sometimes like it seems to be a separate little game between coaches as opposed to the players, doesn't it? I'm sure the players don't take any notice of it.
Yeah, I think sometimes they overrate your authority over the the involvement of your players. If you think this little bit of paper you hand up here and say that said you're a bad player, you'll be a 20% better player this week. It doesn't work that way anymore.
Well, Sheeds wasn't finished there because he also spoke about the heat that was involved in the game between Essendon and North Melbourne, and also the heat that North might expect this week.
Now today we had players having a shower. Some guys, wouldn't have had a shower in the middle of an AFL game for a long time, but I mean, it's been an exceptional autumn weekend, hasn't it?
Yes.
I'm glad we're not going out to Brisbane next week.
Well, it's got to be a valid point, doesn't it?
Oh,
really?
certainly.
Oh, yeah, there's no doubt about that. I can't think of ever in my career having a shower at half-time. I think of wanting, having a heart starter or something like that.
We'll change the boots.
Yeah, exactly.
But, I mean, it's, if the St Kilda Brisbane game of last weekend's anything to go by, it is going to be a very grueling, physically grueling contest.
Very tough gig for them to go to Queensland this week and succeed, I can assure you.
And it was one of the games in which they were beaten pretty soundly last year, should be pointed out.
The starting time of that game, is it 12:45 still? I think it's around about then.
Yeah, they didn't change it in the end.
Yeah. All right, well, we've got a lot to talk about tonight. Gary Lyon, of course, will be joining us a little bit later on. He has been on the training track tonight, and the Melbourne skipper will be here to talk about the big game in Sydney on Friday night. We'll also be crossing very shortly to Rob Gaylard at the Tribunal. And I'm not sure whether Rob is ready for us just yet. Not quite, but we'll be checking in with him shortly, so we'll take a break and then we'll be back with more on Footy Feedback.
Sunday on Sports AFL. The live footy continues when Dermot Brereton brings you the clash of the big boys with Geelong up against Essendon.
Speaking of sensational,
The only place you'll see what promises to be the match of the round, live and exclusive, is on Sports AFL Channel 13. Don't miss this one, 1:45 Sunday on Sports AFL, the channel dedicated to the greatest game of all.
You're right. The way to do it is take the body out and the head's gonna fall. You gotta rip. You gotta dig.
Jeff Southby was one of those few players who stood out in the big league right from the word go.
Blind up high, but well before acceptances, and it was a great mark by Jeff Southby.
Recruited from Sandhurst in country Victoria, Southby won Carlton's best and fairest in his first 2 years with the club, 1971 and 1972. The Blues quickly came to rely on the safe hands and straightforward play of Southby as he drove Carlton forward from the back line. He played in Carlton's 1972 and 79 winning grand final sides. But his finals appearances are best remembered for the controversial shirt front he received early in the 1973 final. Southby was carried from the field and Carlton went on to lose heavily to Richmond. Jeff Southby, the greatest fullback of the modern era, a football legend.
Away we go once again through Southby. Back up for the second attempt, couldn't do so.
Go! It's the biggest event on the motorsports calendar.
Hill's got away well. Villeneuve lights up the tyres.
The heat is on for the Buenos Aires Formula One.
Damon Hill leads.
The excitement, the spectacle, the thrills and the spills, you'll see it all on Sports Australia.
Jacques Villeneuve is taking Michael Schumacher.
The Buenos Aires Formula One Grand Prix.
With his clenched fist raised in victory.
9:30 tonight on Sports Australia Channel 12.
Yes, Luke O'Sullivan. Game a bit tongue-in-cheek, I think, being carried off there at off disable, the Baby Blues. And we'll be talking more about that very shortly. But joining us now, as he does every Monday night, Gary Lyon, welcome.
Good evening, Pete and Dermot. Now, you couldn't be too happy if you're Luke O'Sullivan. He's going to have that picture up on his wall for in years to come, and he's in the light blues, not the navy blues. Yeah. His children mightn't be that impressed.
Highlighted the girth across the, well...
not all that flattering, are they?
No, you just say that Navy is slimming after seeing him in that, in that strip.
At least he can say that he got the 4 points, though, and that's one thing that, well, for a while it looked as though you couldn't possibly say on Friday night, and then it looked as though you might.
No, very disappointing at the end of the day. I think we had our opportunities and didn't take them, although Sydney on the same hand may have thought they were stiff if they had lost the game. So we fought pretty hard to get back into it, but just having a look at some of the vision tonight at training, we just still made too many blues. So we've got a lot to work on, and we know that, and head down, bum up.
I'll ask for the usual medical report because it was said in the paper today that you were lying down in the airport lounge. I hope that was because of the back.
Oh, well, that's nothing new, Pete. Yeah, just taking time out there. We got in late and up early for training, so just lying down and resting the back.
Just quickly on you, if you had to rate yourself percentage-wise, as to say circa 1990, how fit are you now?
Oh, fitness or form? Both fitness. Well, gee, probably travelling about 70 doom, I reckon. Which is, you know, most blokes would be around the 85, I guess, at the minute. So for a fat old slow full forward, not too bad.
You haven't seen fat, mate, until I strip off.
Well, let's hope that doesn't happen. Yeah. Anyway, let's go to the tribunal now, because a man who's under pressure there tonight is Rob Gaylard, because there are 7 players up before the tribunal. Rob, that very well-known expression, looks like it's going to be a long night there.
Well, I don't know whether it will be, Peter. Actually, 3 have been heard, and the last one is, which we've just seen now, Nick Daffy. It has been dismissed, so I'll get to that to you in a little moment or two. But the first 2 charges have already been heard, and both players copping 2 weeks. We have 3 actual striking charges up tonight and 4 wrestling charges. And the consensus of opinion around here, Pete, at the moment is that probably all will be over by about 9 o'clock tonight.
Darryl Pearl was the first up, Rob?
Yeah, it was, Pete. He, of course, the Port Adelaide player, and I really think perhaps they may be going through a bit of a honeymoon period at the moment. I know we have got vision of this particular incident, and it was a little bit of a coat hanger, but while Pearl did actually get 2 weeks, it looked a lot serious, looked worse than that, I think, on the video, and no doubt you're probably looking at it there now. But there was an interesting fact tabled in the submission, which wasn't open in the hearing. It was tabled actually to the tribunal chairman, Mr. Busy, who's back tonight, in writing that this young player does play with a disability.
And what is that?
Well, we're not quite sure, but we are led to believe, because in evidence, Poole himself did say, Pete, that he was blind, and then everything ceased, and he was then told not to say anything further. We were led to believe a little bit later on this player has only got vision in one eye. He's not so much even got impaired vision, he's actually blind in one eye. And I really think that perhaps that may have, been the tribunal chairman might have been a little bit lenient to him on that situation, because it was the left side, and we believe it's the left eye, that he's actually struck this player with, so he's virtually caught him on that wrong side.
Well, he might have been told to keep quiet because he might have been giving the upcoming club some Interesting information.
Look, that's pretty well, I think. That's pretty well it, actually, Peter. The other charge, Mark Miranda, and I tell you what, I think there's been a signal given already by the tribunal so far this year. Miranda's incident was, well, he, in his own words, says that he still doesn't believe that he even made contact, of course, with the Footscray player there in Scott West. Now, West himself felt it was nothing more than a poke in the eye. Miranda still vehemently denied even making any contact with him whatsoever. Now, he's copped the same 2 weeks penalty. So bad news for, Richmond fans that Mark Miranda has copped 2 weeks. But, well, a real coat hanger in the first, a little bit of a touch in the second, and both players getting 2 weeks each. Now, the interesting one here is from Nick Daffy. Now, this case has just been thrown out, and it's been thrown out virtually on the fact that the umpire, Callaghan, again, has reported or made this report on video evidence alone. Now, the video evidence that you're looking at the moment does not clearly show that Daffy makes contact with, of course, we're talking about player Rohan Smith. Smith falls to the ground and had to leave the ground with a cut to his chin, which required stitches. Bert Gordian in the submission asked Mr Busy that this case be thrown out because even Callaghan, the umpire himself, stated that he couldn't say that the vision clearly showed what had actually happened. So Nick Daffy has got off on a pretty close one, but of course he's now up on the wrestling charge.
So how far did they actually get into that case, Rob?
They got up to the extent where before Smith came in to give evidence, Gordian then put the submission forward, and then I think it was almost to be thrown out, and then it was decided, we were told to vacate the room, and it was almost decided then that it would be thrown out, but then the tribunal, which tonight consists of, just excuse me, Sean Maguire, Neil Busy and Emma Dunn, then had a little meeting and decided, okay, look, we'll hear from player Smith. If he does say that, yeah, I did feel contact from this particular player, okay, it might have been a different case, but in his evidence, he said he didn't know who struck him or what or where, or with what or where, I should say, whether it was an elbow or hand. So I think the Tigers are pretty lucky because they've got a few injury problems down there as well too.
Now, Neil's picked the right week to come back. Neil Busy, because the tribunals had to be spread over 2 nights. The rest of the charges, as you said, all to do with wrestling in the game at the MCG on Saturday?
Yes, well, they're, as I said, Nick Daffy's up on the wrestling charge at the moment, but I think one thing might go in his favour because Jose Romero actually charged after Nick Daffy in this incident, but I'll know more when I get upstairs in a moment or two because we're quite a fair way, as you've probably gathered, from where the tribunal room is.
All right, well, we're just taking a look at this vision now with 4 players involved, one more and it would have been a melee, but are they going to hear that case all together, do you know, or are you too busy going up and downstairs?
Well, we're 14 floors down at the moment, 14 floors down at the moment. Pete, down here at the moment, it's wind, there's a little bit of rain just starting to come, so I'll have to go up the escalator very shortly and I'll be back to you as quick as I can and get any information as to what's happening.
OK, Rob, we'll look forward to that. Rob Gaylard reporting live from the AFL Tribunal tonight. Now, there are a couple of other cases up and one of them comes out of the game at Waverley Park on Saturday, and that was the incident between Scott Burns and Stuart Lowe. And we've already taken a look at this, but let's have another look at it. And I think a lot of people are maintaining that Scotty Burns didn't know where Lowe was.
Well, look, there's no doubt he would have known he was behind him, but I'm not too sure whether he knew he was going to throw his arm back and make contact with the chest, the stomach or the head. There's no way he could know exactly where Stewie's head was. That's for certain. You just have to ascertain whether the intent was there to actually throw it back and hurt him or on the opposite angle to shrug off Lowe, because there's no doubt Lowe was grabbing hold of him.
One of the other cases to come up, Dermot, will be an incident involving Zilla and Russell, and I think once they have a look at the videotape here, there will be some interesting deliberations.
Yeah, well, yeah, enough said. That's pretty self-explanatory, that one. Yeah, well, he was always going to have possession there after that sort of action. He's got hold of it. And yeah. I don't need to say much about that one.
OK, we'll leave it at that.
Good luck to the fella, Zilla. Let's hope you can be playing next week or soon the weeks after.
Isn't it nice to see your old friend Neil Busy back in town too after a couple of weeks' absence? Well, he's missed all the Greg Williams hoo-ha, but he's back in the chair again tonight.
He's a good man, Neil. I just didn't agree with a few of his decisions, and he missed a few and got a few wrong. So, but look, Poole, by the way, Colbert's head went back there. I think he was very fortunate. Miranda is super stiff, and the Daffy, that was just a panic report by the umpires after seeing that or hearing that Smith's gone off the ground with blood to the chin. As he said, he didn't see it. Are we getting in the situation now where umpires are going to make reports even off the video if they can't see it clearly based on the injury sustained?
Yeah, that is a bit of a worry if they are going to suppose that something has happened. I know you can't really say too much about it, but it is concerning.
I can't comment on it, Peter, but perhaps I can comment on your comments.
OK, well, do that.
I know. I mean, that is often the case, though. I think at times umpires report, because maybe they're not sure, let's get it in front of the tribunal and let them sort it out, because in the past, they're sent to the country, aren't they, if they miss something obvious? So maybe they take the safe option and put it up before the tribunal and let the tribunal sort it out, and in this instance, they've thrown it out.
Well, I'll tell you one thing you can comment on, and that is some of the highlights that we saw over the weekend. We've compiled the very best of the best from round 3.
Well, the first one up, this bloke shows something new each week. Michael O'Loughlin, brilliant again against Melbourne. Fixing up a few errors there on the Melbourne boys.
And doesn't this bloke love a goal, Dermot? I think the only thing he likes more than kicking the goal is the celebration after it. Have a look at this. Does he?
Quicker after it.
Does he go?
And another bloke who doesn't mind a goal. On the run here, Nick Daffy carries it down to the 50. Perhaps could have gone a little bit further and made sure of it, but just so confident from inside 50, even if it's only 49 metres.
And even after 150 games, Big Scotty Wine's still laying the tackles.
Yeah, great stuff. I think we might see a bit more of this young fella, young Bulldog, Nathan Brown. He's got some talent.
Simon went with the hand, went for the chest mark again.
Here's Brown.
Just moves very well, this kid. Reads it well.
Oh, it's goal.
Brown might have kicked this. Bulldogs in front.
Now, there are a few great goals this week, Dermot, but I'm just wondering whether we'll see a better one than this for the season. Alistair Lynch.
Oh, this will be sensational.
He did that really.
That's under 13 stuff, huh?
Yep. Yep, that was his footy, and this bloke just knocked up getting the footy on the weekend. Craig Trelevin, and a pretty good running goal here, from about 55 plus.
And not a bad debut for this fella in the St Kilda jumper, Jason Heatley, 105.
Check side by Heatley. Oh, don't tell me he's kicked back. What a goal. That is magnificent.
And there's hardly a better side in footy than watching Paul Williams tuck the ball under the arm, take a few bounces, and, well, pretty classical stuff, this.
And it's a bomb. It might be a goal. What a kick.
And in the same vein, Nicky Winmar just weaving his way through this forest of magpies. A forest, yes.
And watch out for this young fella in years to come, Donald Dickey. One over the top.
Nigel Smart wasn't going anywhere here. Aaron Hamill, great tackle.
He swings it into.
And we all know what Cooter can do when he gets going, but just have a look at this stuff.
Somehow Cooter Feeties gets clear, and what a goal from Cooter.
And Hamill's been exciting this year. What about this for a jump? And catch, importantly.
And they keep talking up this young fella, the Eagle David Werpunda. With goals like this, it's easy to understand why.
35 metres out, snaps goal.
And look out, Longy, Brett Chandler on the way through. Gee, blink and you missed that one.
Yeah, and Corey McKernan.
He's got that's a snap.
For a big fella.
Oh, don't tell me he's kicked it. Oh, Gary Everett, eat your heart out.
And in the Michael O'Loughlin vein, Shea Cocker to Collins had this weekly edition. Yes, he's got some ability, young Shea.
Yeah, well, there certainly were some magnificent highlights in the best of the best, Gary, but undoubtedly one of the true highlights of the round was the colour of Carlton's M&M-inspired outfit. The Blues copped their share of ridicule for the move, but really there were just as many prepared to applaud the club's initiative and business savvy. Carlton's Chief Executive, Stephen Gough, joins us on Footy Feedback. Goughy, I suppose the most important thing at the end of the day was the 4 points.
Oh, I think there was no doubt, Peter. John Elliott said at the lunch that he and I may need an armoured van to get out of the ground had the team lost, but they did the job in the finish, although it was a bit slow coming.
How much? Sorry, needed an armoured van to get out with what M&M's paid you anyway,
well, you know, I think it was a great deal in the finish. It's groundbreaking. It's caused a little bit of heartbreak, but we're never going to break with Carlton's tradition.
How much flack did you cop about the change?
Well, very little actually, Peter. When you look at it, I think I kept tally of all the written stuff and phone calls. It was only about 20. And I think a lot of people in the finish understand if the club's going to survive and prosper and keep Optus as our home ground and stay in the competition against the likes of what we've seen, you've got to do it.
Any of the likes of Life members or, you know, past players voice their opposition?
No, I think most of them were pretty supportive. You know, it was a big day for us at the ground and a lot there, and I think they understood. But as you said before, Rhino goes off wearing a pale blue jumper for his 50th game. Does look a bit different up on the mantelpiece in years to come.
Well, Steve, how soon would you look at doing it again? Is it just a one-off, or is it a year, perhaps once a year you might look at it, or?
No, just a once-off. I don't think you'll come across this situation again. We're opening a stand, you want to make it something special, and it all sort of dovetailed into that.
It's almost as sacrilegious as throwing bread in the Premiership Cup, isn't it?
Well, here's the day on the weekend, yesterday in fact, with the opening of the Legends stand, and it was great to see some of the legends of the club back there, Gough.
Yeah, it's terrific. In fact, the guy we're looking at now, Brucey Dool, I think brought the house down in front of the social club, and they tell me he was even interviewed on the radio this morning, so
really?
It's terrific to hear him out and about again.
Did the interview last very long?
Apparently it went on.
It'd be hard to interview on the radio, giving hand signals, wouldn't it?
26,690 people there. Was that satisfactory?
I think it was pretty good. When you're playing an interstate side, you're really only relying on yours and maybe a few of the theatre goers, and while Adelaide had a few there, yeah, we're pretty happy to get that number.
Was there ever any thought, on a technical point, to having white numbers on the back, because the dark numbers apparently were pretty hard to make out from a distance?
Yeah, they came out well on the telly, but as you say, on the day, they certainly were difficult to pick up, and some have suggested that was a ploy to avoid umpires or video scrutiny.
Did you speak to the players about the decision? Like, psychologically, do you think it had any effect on them at all?
I don't think so. Cole Kinnear assured me that he'd taken them through it, shown them the Guernsey when it came available, and there are a few players who like certain Guernseys to wear, but they took it on, and yeah, it wasn't a problem.
Now, there was a few vacant seats in the new stand there when we saw the rear shot then, and yet it was called a sellout. How does that...
Well, it wasn't a sellout, but what we were saying, we were trying to encourage people to pre-book, so that if you wanted to get there, as most people do now, pretty close to the start, yep, that you've got your guaranteed spot locked up. But look, we can take 35, we had 26, and I think playing a Victorian side, we probably would have gone close to filling it on that day, I think.
I heard a caller on radio on the weekend say everyone jumps on the Western Bulldogs when this ticketing thing happened in round one, but Carlton's doing much the same thing. But I think the difference is that you made a point of trying to advise people of what was going on.
I think two things, Peter. We have a general admission area where the first in, first served, there's 3,500 seats. The Bulldogs didn't, and we said, don't do it. You should give those away and then sell after that. But they chose to implement a selling strategy on what are free seats, and that was the backlash. But we don't do that, and we have a bigger demand for ours than they do. But I think our people are a bit more attuned to buying seats because of when we played the MCG against the Collingwoods and Essendons. You have to get a seat if you want to get in.
Now, the positives to come out of the weekend, the 250 or whatever jumped in, and the 4 points, but there was one very disappointing piece of news for the Blues, and that was Mick McGowan. And we're going to have a look at some very interesting footage from the Optus Vision camera here. And when he came off in the second quarter, you can see the disappointment etched all over his face. He was obviously a very upset boy.
Well, I think that's right. I heard you talking before about the increase in the interchange. I don't think we've got enough players left to field an increase in the interchange, so another injury is not what we're looking at. Silvani failed to come up, so we really struggled, and Mick's a class senior player, and you just can't afford to have class senior players sitting out.
Just watch his reaction here as he sits down on the bench, and all of a sudden the realisation starts to hit him after all of the trauma that he's gone through, and he really has done a terrific job to fight back after some obviously adverse publicity, which he may be brought on himself, but it really hit him there.
Oh, no doubt, Peter. Look, he's worked through a whole lot. Changing from a Collingwood to Carlton brings a fair bit of pressure. Injury and off-field performance adds a bit more, and Mick's worked himself up to where he was going to, I think, develop along, and bang, this happened, so it's frustrating.
It's really disappointing or upsetting to a teammate. The first time I ever saw that was Peter Knights came off in one of the finals in the early 80s, and after the game we won, but looked at Pete and tears coming from the eyes, and it's really moving to a player, Gaz, when you see one of your teammates, you just know your heart.
I mean, and that's a special instance because it was a grand final, but I'd imagine that Mick's, whilst he's had a bit of a rough or rocky introduction to the club, he's still a larger-than-life character, and you, with those sorts of blokes, you are aware of the trials and tribulations that they go through to get onto the field, and you share in the pain there, and I think he's had 3 or 4 groin operations now, and it's getting to the stage where...
Harks back to that situation. Remember when he couldn't actually make contact with the ball a few years ago when they kept jabbing him in the groin to see if they could take away the pain, and I mean, it gets to the situation, see where he whacked the roof of the shelter there. Andy Bennett at Hawthorn, another player, he got injury after injury, punched a wall because of the frustration and broke a couple of bones in his hand. It really does get that bad, and I really sympathise with Mick there, having missed 100-odd games.
Sorry, Pete, what about Stephen Silvani? 3 times now I think he's been named, and 3 times he hasn't played. Is that a worrying sign?
Well, I think it is that he felt very sore after training, and on the first occasion, I think, and decided to not risk it. And given his history back 5 or 6 years ago, where he missed a lot of football with a reoccurrence, we decided to rest him, or he did too. And then this week he trained. I watched Friday night, and he trained fantastically. And I said, well, we're over that hurdle. Saturday he didn't feel that good and withdrew, so it's a concern.
Just getting back to the Mick McGuan situation, amongst those to sing his praises and to feel sorry for him after the game was Carlton coach David Parkin.
Yeah, look, Mick, it was a bit sad because he'd had an outstanding first quarter with, 8 or 9 possessions. He'd taken a mark going the wrong way in the first few minutes, which put a real stamp on the approach that everyone should take. I mean, he put himself in enormous jeopardy marking against the grain. And I think for his sake and our sake, it's sad that he would get injured, because he really does need to be playing footy at this stage, and it might be some weeks, I think, before he's available again. And to have lost the 2 architects, Williams for a few weeks and now McGuan for a few weeks, certainly isn't going to help our immediate future.
Goughy, do you know what the latest is there? Is there an update medically on Mick McGuan?
No, not that I've got, Peter. I think it's a bit of send him off and see what the experts say, and we'll have a think about it after that.
It's interesting, David Parkin obviously holds him in very high regard. He mentioned him there as the architect along with Greg Williams, and I did read an article where he speaks very highly of his football knowledge, and so he may be a bigger loss than perhaps people appreciate.
Yeah, I think he's a smart player, and he understands the game very well, and that helps. We've got a few players who don't really understand it yet, or feeling their way, and terrific to have someone to help them out on the field and at training. I mean, it's a terrific acquisition that way.
Without wishing to go over old ground, that incident with Matty Hogg, which is now forgotten, but how tenuous was his position at the club at that time? Was it touch and go?
Oh, look, I think they're difficult things. You've got to treat everyone on its merits, or failure to be on its merits. And look, it was a serious incident, and it had repercussions that were examined in full. And I think rather than make a decision, in the heat of the moment, you get all the facts and get the people together and go through it. And I think that's what we did, and it's credit to Hoggy and Mick that they worked that out, and the rest of the team accepted what went on. So yes, they're the hiccups that go along, and but they've been sorted out, so it's good.
So was it basically the players who said, OK, misdemeanour, but we're prepared to forgive that?
Oh, I think more than that. I think that the club itself, I mean, coaching staff and those around, we've got to have a look at it, and I think all clubs are pretty serious about how their players are in their relationship with others and their discipline, and it was one that we looked at, very heavily, as I say, not in the real heat of the moment there at 8 o'clock in the morning, but talked to the people, got all the facts, and went through it, and I think we made the right decision on it.
Well, one thing that Carlton hasn't had a problem doing in the first few weeks of the season is getting the footy. They've had it plenty of times. In fact, they've had it a lot more than the opposition. You can see there that they've had 100 possessions more than the opponents, and they've had 29 more marks. But at half-time on Sunday, they looked as though they were going to be 0-3. Well, after the match, David Parkin was asked about the skill errors that Carlton have been making over the past few weeks.
Well, I just think the errors that we made in possession of the ball. I mean, we've had a huge amount of the ball in comparison to our opponents, but we kept making what I think were ordinary decisions about options to take, both whether we kick it or hand pass it. And then when we did decide, we did it so slowly that the ball was interfered with, or in fact given away to the opposition. So I guess it could have been so demoralising, because we had probably the youngest and least experienced team we've had in the field that I can remember. But fortunately for us, we got terrific leadership from our senior group. There weren't all that many, but the Bradleys and Sextons and Rattons and the Deans, those sorts of players, were able to lift their own game and give a bit of the right kind of direction to the team. And the kids are enormously enthusiastic and work very hard.
Well, gentlemen, can we read anything into those stats?
Well, you know, a little bit. I mean, if you've got the ball, obviously chipping the ball around, and sometimes Carlton can play a little bit short, which inflates your statistics and your marking statistics. But look, you take away a few wise heads out of every football team, and they don't play anywhere near the exact plan that the coach wants. So, yeah, they're probably lacking a little bit of leadership. And Goughy, you made mention a second ago, there's a couple of boys out there that are still learning the caper. So, yeah, they're just a little bit undermanned in terms of seniority at the moment.
Oh, I think that's right, and you know, a Spalding and a Kernahan up forward give you a bit of a target, and you can hone in on it at times. But we're sort of coming with the ball looking, and they're not there. And then what are the options? And it might be a short one sideways, and or a pressure one as a result of not having someone to go to. And that's what's happened. I think we've had plenty of it, but we've made some crucial errors.
When you do have two options and you're under pressure, you see an experienced player or a young kid who's on fire, and you've got both in different parts of the ground, you nearly almost go for the experienced player when you're under pressure.
Oh, our guys do it all the time.
I mean, I think we saw it yesterday. We were at the Hawthorn game yesterday, and at times Jason Dunstall draws that sort of attention, doesn't he? Even sometimes when it's the wrong option, but he's got that presence, and sometimes you go to them when perhaps you shouldn't.
Yep.
As well as the likes, Kernahan's obviously the one that they're mentioning at the moment, but the likes of Pearce and Brown are being sadly missed too.
Yeah, well, I suppose you get into the position where they just start to play and your team's not winning. It's a bit of a temptation to rush them in, but I think it's a disservice if we do. So you've got to let them go and let the experts, the coaching and the phys ed staff and the medical people say, well, we think they're nearly right, and bring them up accordingly.
Yep. Just quickly, Pearcey seems to me to be dependent on a good senior player being next to him, obviously the likes of Kernahan, and I believe I heard some news earlier tonight that Kernahan is hopeful to play this weekend.
Well, it's been like trying to hold him down. He's wanted to play every week, Dermy, and it's difficult. But I think he feels it worse being off the field, and he's trying to maybe accelerate his progress. But I think we'd be guarded and very much take it as it is.
50-50?
I think he'll push for better, but let's wait and see.
Let's give you the right of reply to something that was said on the weekend by Essendon President Graham McMahon, and this was his quote from the President's lunch. If you do the crime, you should do the time. The tribunal members did what any other court or magistrate would do, and that is take into account not only the charge, but the player's past record. Now, Goughy, I know you have to be reasonably careful with what you can say here, because it is sub judice at the moment, but do you have anything to say about Graham's comments?
Well, I think I'd agree with him that, you know, if the charge is there and the tribunal found accordingly, well, that'd be fine. But we don't think that that's the case, and hence it's gone on. And you know, as you say, I can't say much, but that's basically the situation.
What is the latest? When does it go back to the Supreme Court? May the 13th?
13th of May. Yeah, which is what we wanted, a quick hearing and get out of the road. It's a lot of pressure on him, and as we saw the week after, not too well.
Not holding up all that well, or is he still be around the club? Or
yes, he has been. He's away at the moment, but look, it's been difficult times for him and his family and everyone in the club, and it's a lot of pressure. And it's, I think we saw in the papers there was a, you know, most written about item more than politics and everything, and that's the nature of football, and you've got to take the, you know, the pressure that comes with that. But yeah, I think it got to him on this game, and he's paid the penalty for that, and so we don't have any argument about that.
Just to come to his defence a little bit, and I know you can't say anything, I think it is new ground that we've covered with the report on the umpire, and I know you can't say that in relation to that, you do the crime, you do the time policy. It is new ground, so we don't know whether he should do the time for that, for this new charge, which really we haven't heard this, a very passive type of influence made upon the umpire.
I nodded.
Now, one fella who's been around the club for a long time is Luke O'Sullivan. We saw a bit of a sneak preview of him before. He obviously enjoyed the game, his 50th game the other day. What is it that has made a bloke who's played 50 games so popular around the club?
Well, I think you're probably seeing it now, aren't you? Anyone who can make his 50th game an occasion like this has got something special, hasn't he? He's the star of the opposition club nights, he's the star of the trips away, and he's the man who keeps the thing bubbling over. So whilst he can play, and he's had a terrible run with injuries, we've never seen him play for too long because of the injuries, and but we've seen him play off the field, and he's very good at that too.
Just about that situation, been around the club for 10 years, and we talked about keeping a player on the list when you turn them over normally. How would his I don't want to pry, but how would his player payment go? I mean, a 10-year player, if you're at a club for 10 years, you'd expect to be on over 100,000. Now, I'm not saying tell us the figure, but how do you keep a player on who, well, through seniority, would assume a reasonable wage and gets, and you know you've got very little football from him?
Well, I think that's one of the things about Luke. He's accepted the fact that he is 10 years, but he's not getting paid anywhere like a 10-year player, which has been good for the club, and he's had to wear that. And I suppose it gets to the stage, if you don't get the games up, it's difficult to get the dollars that go with it.
Very much a performance-based contract with Luke?
Oh, very much with Luke, all the way.
So what about that, Stephen? Adrian Gleeson is another guy I know that is held in very high regard, and David Parkin had to make the tough decision. Is there room, or should there perhaps be a veterans list of some sort where you can perhaps hang on to one or two of those older guys for the experience and the value that they add to a club?
Oh, I think that's right. We did have it a few years ago, didn't we? Back there was a reduction in the cap if you kept them on if they're over 30, but Adrian was a tough one because he's been a great servant, a good bloke around the club, good knowledge of the game. Injuries and a hard work had caught up with him. We didn't think that he could go on and be a regular senior player, but he had a role to play, and he's filled that as on the match committee, on the coaching staff, and playing in the reserves. Just
quickly, with that situation, you said he's very good on the end-of-season trips. You get very. I can offer you no football, be very good on the end-of-season trips, and if you want to pay me a little retainer, I'll go away with you on your end-of-season trips.
It'll be a very little retainer.
Can I just ask you one question, go back to the Greg Williams scenario? There was a suggestion the AFL was going to investigate his payments because of comments made by Peter Jess that it might cost him up to $90,000 or $100,000, and they were going to look into that. Has anything happened there?
Yeah, I think that the AFL would want to see Peter Jess about his comments and under what basis did he make them, but I'm not privy to what those details are, and Mr Jess is away at the moment, so we haven't heard from him, or I don't know whether the AFL have contacted him since.
Do you think player managers have a bit too much to say sometimes in these cases? Should it be left to the footy club?
Well, I think the difficulty now is that, you know, the players' agents and the activities players are doing has increased so much that it's a different world, and we see it all the time. The media seek them out for a comment from another angle, not only the club on whether it's a suspension, an injury or an endorsement. There's another side to which can be the player management side, so I think that's just part of the caper now.
Well, the player managers, I mean, I remember when I first started, it basically was contract time, send them in there, and out they came, and then didn't hear of them until the next time. But the role really has changed.
Well, if you look at Ricky Nixon, I remember Ricky when I started at Carlton was one of our country boys just starting with the club as a raw 17-year-old, and here he is now, you know, very much a multimedia person with a high profile throughout the country, so it's certainly changed.
Blockbuster coming up this week. I know it's an overused word, but Carlton Collingwood always is.
Well, it's got something special, and there's no doubt. We look forward to it, they look forward to it, and the stakes are high, as they usually are, particularly for us. We're not travelling that well. They're coming off a loss, so I think we've got a very big crowd for what will be another classic.
What sort of crowd are you expecting, around about the 90,000 mark?
I would think we'd have 80 plus, yes. I think, you know, the form of Collingwood up until last week, and us playing the old rivals, and back into the dark navy blue might, you know, create some interest.
Yes, well, I'm sure a lot of the Carlton supporters will be very happy to see that. Stephen Gough, thanks very much for coming in, and we do have the little present for you, the Sports AFL baby blue towel to take home. A bit like the old world of sport, though. It is a used one too. Thanks for coming in, and I've been told to sincerely wish you the best for the rest of the season. I'll do that after next week's game. You know where my allegiances lie.
Thank you for your sincerity.
Stephen Gough, the Carlton Chief Executive, joining us to talk footy on Footy Feedback, and we'll be doing more of that after this break.
What are you talking about? It's always the guy before the girl. Look at Sonny and Cher.
Not always. There's Bonnie and Clyde.
Tarzan and Jane.
Venus and Adonis.
Bob and Blanche.
Mar and Parkettle.
Jack and Diane.
Morticia and Gomez.
Fred and Wilma.
Oh, you're kidding. Josie and the Pussycats.
No, you can't have them. Next you want Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah. Club night with Beauty and the Beast.
Please.
Don't miss it from 8 this Thursday following Footy Focus on Sports AFL.
Towards Sutton. Sutton appealing for the free kick, and what do you think's happened? He's got it.
The man they call the atom bomb, or the human tank.
Charlie Sutton is living proof of Footscray's fighting spirit. Renowned for barging fearlessly through the packs, Charlie Sutton became a hero of the western suburbs.
The ball's pushed over the boundary line and Sutton puts Jeff Collins into the fence.
He signed with Footscray in 1942 and a few years later became known as one of the toughest back pocket players in the game.
Towards the half-forward line, Sutton comes in, a drop kick down towards the forward area.
He captain-coached the Bulldogs in 1951, taking the club to its only premiership win 3 years later.
Down towards Sutton. Look at Sutton weaver his way through the pack here. Handball to Gilmore. Gets the ball to Sutton. Sutton onto his left boot.
Sutton won Footscray's best and fairest in 1950 and wore the state Guernsey 18 times, including the honour of being Victoria's captain coach in 1952. A Bulldog through and through, Sutton has never been far from the club since retiring as a player in 1956. He returned as coach in 1967 and for many years served the club as a committee member and president.
It's all over. Footscray's first ever grand final.
Making in the NBA, you need offense.
Gary Payton lead pass, Kemp,
You've got to play defense.
Kemp inside, blocked by Elijah.
And you need teamwork.
Great penetration by Smith, dropping it off.
But most of all, you need vision.
Look at this kid. Are you serious? Are you for real?
Not that vision, Opta's vision.
The Jazz are running hard and they'll be looking to continue that form when they travel to Phoenix to take on a desperate Suns outfit. Wednesday, 10 a.m. live on ESPN.
Shay Cockatoo Collins and Dean Laidley getting acquainted at the MCG yesterday. Well, they were widely tipped by many, including Kevin Sheedy, as almost unbeatable for this year's flag. Great depth and close to the mark last year, and 1997 was supposed to be Brisbane's season. Joining us now to talk about those expectations and indeed the reality which now sees the Lions 1 and 2 after 3 games is Brisbane midfielder Adrian Fletcher. Adrian, you've stayed over?
Yep, stayed down. I've got a young girl down here, so it's part of the deal.
All right, well, it hasn't been the start that you wanted, has it?
No, it hasn't been the start. It was always going to be hard over in Adelaide, but I think they put this down as a win against Hawthorn, and we didn't follow through it.
You got a young girl in Gary Lyon in previous years used to have one in each state, but no.
Is that in your contract, Fletch, that you're going to stay down? Is that, did you negotiate that when you
you have
signed?
to. You have to negotiate that. Depends how your form's going.
But as you said, you would have had lofty expectations going into yesterday's game, and obviously having the wood over Hawthorn, hence that huge comeback a couple of years ago, and it didn't realise fruition.
No, the Hawthorn's playing pretty good footy at the moment. They're tough at the footy, and Jason Dunstallback kicked 5, so that puts a bit of pressure on us. But we didn't play well yesterday. Played a bit of spurts, but we're not in good form at the moment.
Yeah, Fletch, the fact that you played the week earlier against St Kilda in pretty oppressive conditions and then butted up in 20, as it turned out, 28, 29 degree heat. A few of the players, I think we mentioned during the call, Alistair Lynch looked a little tired and weary. I'm not sure if that's a legacy of the chronic fatigue, but how did you yourself, how did you feel? Were you a bit flat?
A bit weary early, but once you get your legs going and you know, the adrenaline's pumping and probably chasing a bit of butt all day. So, no, I mean, I don't think that it was the heat that cost us the game. I just think we weren't hard at the ball early, and they got a bit of confidence up and they kicked goals early.
How does that affect you? You know how we were talking earlier about playing several games in a row against good opposition, tight, hard game in the wet, does take the sting out of your legs. Let's say you played 2, 3, 4 games in a row in 27+ degree heat. Do you feel it at the end of that, say, 3rd or 4th game, that it's really taken the sting out of you?
Oh, for sure. I think they've got to have a look at it. 12:45 is a terrible start in Brisbane. That's the hottest part of the day. At least when at 2 o'clock starts, a bit of sea breeze comes in. So they've got to have a good look at that. But it does take a lot out of you. You lose a lot of fluids, and it's very hard to replce them by the time you play this.
Is your training schedule structured for the next week? Does he back off a little bit, or as a result of say 2 or 3 games in a row in hot conditions?
Yeah, Sweeper backed off this week. He was very light on the track. We hardly did any running, more just touch work. It does hurt you, you know, a couple of games in a row.
What about Lynchy too? Because look, I played against him not against him, but there was one game when he played for Brisbane against Sydney Swans, one of my few occasions I was actually out on the turf. And look, he was as dominant as I've ever seen a player out on the ground. And I reckon he could be just as good as the big guys, or the big names at centre-half forward, Carey and the likes. He is a phenomenal athlete. Yet yesterday, and some people said, Gary touched on it, said he was dragged, he just couldn't move in the end. He just looked so flat. Is he over this fatigue syndrome? Watch this here. He actually stands flat-footed. Now, he just doesn't want to be moving. He's looking for somebody to run past him then. He just hasn't got the... And look, he would just, early on in the game, he would dance around that opponent, brush the tackle, and they'd be hanging off the back of him. He'd leave them in his jet stream, so to speak. Is he over this?
I think he is over it, but I think he's missed 2 years of footy, so that's what's hurting him. Oh, not missed, but, you know, he hasn't played a lot of full games, and I wouldn't like to miss 8 games in a row and then try and play a full game flat at 110%. But Lynchy's been on the track the last 3 or 4 weeks, and he's training well, and it's just a bit of confidence thing, and probably get a bit more miles in the intensity sort of game situation.
Well, 2 possessions after half-time, after that great goal in the first quarter for Alistair Lynch, and in the post-match media conference, Lions coach John Northey was asked about Alistair Lynch.
What was the situation with Alistair Lynch, John?
In regards to what?
When you took him off, was it just general fatigue? Or?
Well, it appeared that way. I mean, he was over on the far wing. He was down on his hands and knees virtually, and the game had to be won at that stage, and we needed players who could run, and obviously he'd had enough, so he was taken from the field because of that.
Is he still being affected by the chronic fatigue syndrome?
Well, I'm not too sure, actually, because, you know, I dare say it's a thing that the player himself would only know, and we believe that he was fairly well over it. But, you know, when you play games, it was pretty warm out here in a big ground, I suppose. He's always going to be tested, Alistair, and he's just got to be aware of that and adapt to the situation.
Yeah, I had hoped that Alistair Lynch might be able to assume the centre-half forward role this year, but look, it looks unlikely after yesterday's showing that he got so tired. But look, one man you'll agree at the other end of the ground who had a huge influence, just his presence out there, and he's starting to put the score on the board, is Jason Dunstall. You probably would have felt a little bit better if he had taken the full time to recover.
Yeah, he's looking super fit this year, like coming back from a knee operation and looking so fit and moving so well. I mean, I think he's 4 weeks earlier than he's supposed to be, and he's taking marks on the fly, like guys, you know, right behind him, and he's taking them, you know, in his hands, and his confidence is back, I think.
I think there's a fair bit of truth in the situation. He's not marking. He never was a great aerialist, but he's not taking too many above the well, the crown of his head. But he is making it to the fall of the ball. See, that's probably out in front of the eyes. That's as high as he's going to get. But yeah, the confidence is up for the leading aspect now, which is good for Hawks supporters.
I just think there were some signs there for opposition fullbacks just to start to feel a little bit worried, I think, for weeks to come. I was sitting behind the goals and had a good look at him, and look, he kicked 5, he kicked 3 in the first quarter, and after quarter time he perhaps wasn't all that significant, but there were some opportunities there that he did let pass. I think in the call, Dermot, you suggested he dropped one he would have eaten a couple of years ago. So once he starts putting those together, he quite easily could have kicked probably 7 or 8 yesterday.
Yeah, he should have kicked 7 easy.
I know it's a lot of the time it's basically balance. You know, if you lead out full tilt straight at the kick, and Gary, you can attest to this, being a full forward, put 2 hands on the ball, you've got to have, you know, faith in your own ability for your knees to land on the ground on your feet, and your knees to take the impact. Jason's rolling when he hits the ground now, so he hasn't got the full confidence back in the strength of his knees yet, but once he does, plays enough games that mentally goes out of his head, the knees are a little bit wonky, land on the feet, he won't have to quickly think about taking the hand away to brace the fall on the ground, and I think you could see him take quite a few grabs out in front.
Is he rolling or is he bouncing?
He's doing a bit of both.
He's rolling.
He's doing a bit of both.
Now, the bloke who started out on Jason Dunstall was Jared Malloy. He went to the other end of the ground and gave you some good drive up forward.
Yeah, Jared's been good for us. He's got a bit of mongrel in him, which is good. He runs straight at the ball. See there, he's going to biff somebody here. Hopefully we don't see him at the Tribunal this year, but No, he runs straight at the nurry, and he always gives you a target to hit leading out.
He's an explosive type of player, Fletcher. We're just interested to know if you had the 5K time trial, would he be up the front or down the back, do you think? Because I know he'd be up the front and in the strength department. He just snatched that one out of Johnny Hassel's hands.
I think he's an explosive player. I don't think he'd be endurance.
He's got the fast twitch.
He's got the fast twitch fibres. He's very strong over here.
What would he bench press, for instance? What would he bench?
Oh, I don't. He'd be up there. I'd say it'd be 140, wouldn't he? That's pretty normal, isn't it? Around the bigger guys.
Oh, that's cool stuff.
Normal for us big blokes. Yeah.
No, but he was very interesting. He, I mean, hasn't, as Gary alluded to, hasn't got a lot in the wind tank. And look, with his talent, I really think if he was to really work on that aspect of his game and become a pinch hitter out at centre-half forward, centre-half back, because he's got both ends covered if he can play right in front of the goals, forward or back, add another dimension to his game because he's got talent.
Yeah, put another bow to his string and play him at centre-half forward, gives a bit of impact, takes a bit of pressure off Clark Keating as he's young. You know yourself, centre-half forward's probably one of the most important positions on the field if you want to get a good start to the game.
So I don't like Dunstall though, because when Dunstall came down, he ran a 5K time trial, and I've never seen anybody throw up like Dunstall after it. He sat in the corner, he was distraught, and he suddenly realised, like you mentioned, he looked good, Dunstall. He suddenly realised no longer can you turn up after pre-season or the 3 or 4 weeks off you guys get now and be a little bit podgy around the stomach. You've got to be 100% fit when you get back, and all you're doing is topping it up when you get there. If someone was to take him under the wing and say, hey, this is the way you've got to work, he could be a very, very good player.
Oh, he'd be a very good player. He's just his aggression at the ball, like he just runs flat at it, and whoever's in his way, look out.
Adrian, is the travelling an issue?
Well, you just got to get in good routines. Like, we've got a good routine. We travel down late afternoon, get here about 7, have a feed. We haven't got much time to ourselves. Good sleep, and you're up and having a stretch and you're playing. So I think our routine's pretty correct, but I just think the attitude probably hasn't been correctly, you know, probably this week, and probably the Adelaide wasn't very good attitude. Just got to get back to the, you know, we're coming to play footy in Melbourne. We're not coming for a holiday. And if we stick to that, I think we'll go well.
Yeah, most coaches are quite quick to dismiss that as an excuse, but John Northey was quite candid on this issue after the game.
Travelling down, I suppose some of the young fellows tend to let other things maybe flood their mind or whatever it may be, and you do worry at times. I dare say they're out of their own environment, but that's football nowadays. We've got to adapt to that and just make sure that when we do come down here and we try to make sure that we give them everything that they do have at home, you know, that all the comforts and that sort of thing. But once again, it just comes down to the mental state. We've just got to mentally prepare ourselves better when we play in Melbourne.
How do you do that, John? And how do you say, we're going to Melbourne, let's be strong?
Well, I think that's no doubt in the experience of players. We've certainly got to help out in that area of having chats with them and meetings with them. But at times, you know, being young players, I dare say they get a bit blasé. Well, we don't have to focus until maybe when we arrive down there the next day or whatever it may be. I think this is a game where you need to really put a lot of homework in on the opposition, your own side, and make sure that you focus as soon as, you know, we're coming down to play football, we're coming down to win the game, rather than, you know, it's an aeroplane flight and then tomorrow I'll start thinking about the game. And at times maybe that happens.
Brisbane Lions coach John Northey. Well, Adrian, that's something you don't have to worry about this week because you're at home to North Melbourne, but then you've got 2 travelling games, Port Adelaide and Essendon, so it's important that you get that right. Yeah, it is important. You don't get no respect. You can play good at home, but if you don't win away from home, people just don't think you can play. So it's pretty important for us to play well from home. I mean, we always play well at home, but we just got to play well in Melbourne, and that's what it's all about.
Pencil in the Port Adelaide game as a win?
I think it's a lot tougher than people reckon this year. I think that a bit of confidence and they could roll anybody. Thanks for your time. We appreciate the fact you've come in tonight. Don't forget to slip, slop, slap against North Melbourne, and maybe look for the shade from the light towers. Apparently it comes in handy sometimes. Give our regards to the young girl too. I will do. Adrian Fletcher from the Brisbane Lions joining us tonight on Footy Feedback. No further news from Rob Gaylard at the Tribunal. We'll be keeping you posted if anything more does come through, and we'll be back to talk more footy after this break.
Cows, what can I get you?
Never mind that, Ron. Did you know that we've got Ian Collins from the AFL, you know, your mate Collo, as a regular guest on our show?
Yeah, now, a drink?
No, and we'll be the first TV show with the selected teams for the weekend's games.
Maybe a beer.
And we'll cross live to club training for all the news on injury and form.
Are you going to order a drink or not?
Don't think so, Ron.
Paying customers only.
Footy Focus, 6:30 Thursday on Sports AFL.
The girl who wasn't like the other girls. The pretty girl who didn't flirt and giggle. The one who was good at sports, but never on the team. That girl still isn't like the other girls. She never wanted to be.
It's the biggest event on the motorsports calendar.
Bill's got away well. Villeneuve lights up the tyres.
The heat is on for the Buenos Aires Formula One.
David L. leads.
The excitement, the spectacle, the thrills and the spills, you'll see it all on Sports Australia.
Jacques Villeneuve is taking Michael Schumacher.
The Buenos Aires Formula One Grand Prix.
With his clenched fist raised in victory.
9:30 tonight on Sports Australia, Channel 12.
You're right. Got a whip.
We got all the stuff off the wall, #1. Get rough. See them when they tumble, watch them when they cast the power and the passion like was meant to be like this. See it all, come alive, make the traction right before your eyes. See it all, only when your heart does
Prime Minister John Howard.
right up in your face. See when they kick and try to get a little space. See it all, come alive, make the traction right before your eyes. See it all, only when your heart does vision. See it all, only when your heart does vision.
Oh, we just saw two of the great talents of the competition in action there. Adrian Fletcher of Essendon, what a season he's having, and the inspirational kangaroo in Glen Archer. Welcome back to Football Feedback. Well, the news is starting to filter through from the Tribunal. Rob Gaillard has come down the 14 stories to our cameras there. And Rob, what's the latest on those wrestling charges against those 4 players?
Well, you notice I'm not even out of breath either, Pete. That's how fit we are down here. Well, not good news for Richmond and Footscray fans to the extent that the boys are going to be a little bit lighter in the pocket. At least they didn't get any match suspensions out of it. Both players now, for those people in the club, they will probably be able to know. Now, you fellas can do a little bit of guessing back there in the studio. They have been, well, the charges have been sustained, so let's put it that way. And the fine applicable is 1/52nd of their base payment. So in layman's terms, that's probably 1 week's salary. And the other thing also they do have to cop up for is 1 match payment. Having a look at the vision, as we probably see it here, Pete, you can see that both players virtually have hold of one another's jumpers. And Bert Gordian, of course, the advocate for Nick Daffy, did ask for the umpire's advocate there to please explain what the definition of a wrestle is, because a wrestle is where 2 players or 2 people try to throw one another to the ground and one get the ascendancy. Both these players virtually only had hold of one another's jumper and were holding them at arm's length, and Nick Daffy, probably the lesser of the 2, was trying to get away from it. But Mr.
So
Busy,
can you clarify that Daffy has been done and has been fined as well?
both of them have been fined, Dermy, yes.
That's amazing.
So it is amazing, isn't it? And I suppose when you look in hindsight, at some stage Nick has had hold of him by the jumper, so if you're going to grab one, you're going to have to get the other, aren't you? So
but it's hardly a wrestle, it's more like hold the jumper, keep him at arm's length. He's got his head turned away, he doesn't really want to be involved, but he doesn't want to be put in a headlock.
Dermot, Bert Gordian summed it up to Mr. Busy by saying, "Sir, I say to you nothing more that this is nothing more than the pride of Erin." I think that's pretty well sums it up, but they're out of pocket, unfortunately.
OK, so just to recap from earlier cases, Rob, Darryl Poole, 2 weeks.
Yes, he did plead guilty, by the way. The other 2 boys pleaded not guilty.
And Mark Miranda also copped 2 weeks, and the striking charge against Nick Daffy was thrown out. Rob, thanks for your time.
Just
and
before we go, Pete, can I just, one thing, Justin Charles is up there at the moment. Don't like the chances, to be quite truthful. They were just going into the room, but unfortunately, in the evidence that was given in the earlier case, Charles was shown as being the aggressor to throwing them to the ground. So for Justin's point of view, if these 2 boys have been fined, I don't like his chances.
All right, Rob Gaylard, thanks for your time and getting out of the wind. Rob Gaylard joining us from the AFL Tribunal. Well, let's take a look at some of the other action from round 3. And Gary Lyon and his Demons went up to the SCG on Friday night. Gary to play his 200th game, and have a look at this decision in the last quarter.
Monster kick, that one.
It was a massive kick, and
what was the free kick for?
Well, he's paid it for shepherding, obviously, and again, I have to be a little bit careful, but maybe Dermot, you could jump on side for me.
Yeah, well, no, look, he's, in actual fact, technically looking at that, he's facing you here, he's got his eyes off the ball, and he's actually stopped you getting to the contest. Admittedly, the contest would be over the line, so everything cancels itself out, but if there is an error there, he has gone to you to try and draw the free kick to nullify the goal, and that's where it sits.
Well, I've always said you were a fine judge, but look, I thought I was a bit stiff, and you got to get back for the contest, as Dermot says, and I had to get back on the goal line at least, and he was between me and the goal line, so there was going to be some incidental contact. But they're the breaks, I guess.
It could have actually, you know, been really technical here. I'm going to do this to the boys up here once again. If you can bring it up and just show it and stop it where the first point of contact is made, he is actually looking at you, Gary, and you're trying to get to it. It was almost like he giving you a free kick to stop you getting to the fall of the ball, so therefore you might have had a second shot at goal if we want to get really technical.
I'm not quite sure what you said, but I agree. I agree wholeheartedly.
In the context of the game too, it was crucial. That would have put you 5 points in front. And did they sweep the ball down and Cook kicked the goal after that?
I'm not quite sure how close it was, but yeah, it was going to be 5 points, and we had a little bit of a roll going. We had a bit of momentum, that magical word, and but it wasn't to be, and we lost the game. So you can't really isolate too many incidents, but that didn't help us.
And look, we're not going to show that again, but take my word for it. That's how it would be, literally.
I will.
One thing we are going to show is something that happened at Waverley Park on Saturday to the Magpies, and that was they fell on their bottoms a lot.
One.
Yeah, look, this was an interesting one. It was Tony Shaw alluding to the fact that most of his players had moulded soles on rather than screw-in stops, and I think he deemed them being a bit unprofessional in not taking the safe option. And
I heard you talking about this during the commentary of the game yesterday, and you said that the moulded soles on that surface are probably just as good.
Well, look, we haven't played at Waverley, or I certainly haven't this year, but on a day when it was about 25 degrees and there hasn't been too much rain, well, I for one would have gone with the moulded soles just on the surface without having seen what it was like, but yeah, it seemed to be a pretty harsh sort of a call.
The worst thing, I mean, a footballer's, well, his tools of the trade are his feet. They are what gets him around, and obviously you need comfort to your feet. If you get blisters, you're out of the ball game, you know, from square one. But look, you've got to keep your feet, and I suppose the players have probably thought comfort before they thought practicality in this instance.
Look, it is an interesting one. I mean, there are some players at our club who wear nothing but moulded sole boots, whether it's raining, whether it's mud and slush, they will wear moulded soles every single time.
Jarman at Adelaide used to wear those nipple sole shoes in the really wet, muddy conditions also.
Stephen
Some players
Silvani wears a pair of his favourites, or a similar sort of a thing. I mean, each of them are different, but I mean, such is the technology nowadays that the moulded sole boot is, whilst it doesn't quite give the grip of a screw-in stop, the difference isn't as much as perhaps it used to be.
Do the powers that be keep an eye on the Magoos and see what's going on out there?
Oh, look, even the old boot starter has to come into play here. I mean, I always make the point of going to him before the game and ask him what the boys are wearing in the reserves there, and he'll tell me, you know, look, most of them got mouldeds on, or everyone's wearing screw-ins, just to get an idea. But in the end, you live and die by your decision, and you've got to keep your feet, obviously.
So I'd never played a game without asking one of the senior players in the reserves what footwear they were wearing.
Speaking of vital equipment, the stretcher was certainly vital out there. It was overused on Saturday. Now, this situation, the stretcher comes onto the ground. What happens? Stewie Lowe has to get on it?
Well, it's just an understanding of the rules here, and it's probably where the game is over-umpired. I mean, if the stretcher comes out, if it's called for and it comes out, if my understanding is if it's not used, utilised, the club receives some kind of fine. 5 big ones, Gary?
I believe once it's out there, you must hop on the stretcher, regardless of what's... And I think it's about $5,000.
And this was brought in to counteract the clubs who were finding that other teams had a run on and there might have been a man go down with a slight injury. Run out the stretcher, hold up the play, give your captain time to rally his troops and say, all right, settle, do whatever. And trying to stop that, they brought in this fine. And you're probably going to get 50-50 occasions where sometimes they call for the stretcher because a trainer's out there and he looks down, he sees something and he puts the cross arms up or whatever the signal is at that club for the stretcher. It's on the way out there, and then when the doctor's on the scene, he says, we don't need the stretcher. So, I mean, there's a 50-50. It's probably where the game has been over-policed by the bureaucrats.
Well, history was made on the weekend for the first time. Port Adelaide was successful. For the first time, we heard the Port Adelaide theme song, and guess who didn't know the words? I think he needs to mime, Jack.
He's no Milli Vanilli, is he? I just wonder how those boys, I mean, they must have had a few practices over the pre-season just for when they do win a game.
Well, they did Richmond a couple of times in practice matches. Perhaps they might have had a bit of a practice there, yeah.
Now, just to close from the weekend, one thing that you probably may never see again, a mistake from James Hird. Have a look at this. What was going through his mind at this stage?
It was late in the game, so... Oh, look, that's not even a free kick. He's obviously thought all the people contesting that mark were out of the all the contest effectively. Forgot about Big Robbo there.
Prior opportunity. I think he had plenty of that.
OK, a bit of news from the Tribunal, boys. Ellis and Charles have both been found guilty of wrestling as well, and they have been fined 1/52nd of their base payment and also 1 match payment, whatever that might work out to be.
Well, if I'm involved in a wrestle this week, your advice, Dermot, is what?
I'd say just throw the hands up in the air. Run up the white flag very early and close your eyes. You know, just show them you have got no eye contact and put your hands up clear so they can see you haven't got hold of them.
I think you're hitting the ground and lying prostrate like that. I can't get done for that.
Prostrate or prostrate? Let's have a look at the ladder. And Essendon, the only undefeated side at the moment. Collingwood, West Coast, Western Bulldogs, stop it, Derm. Richmond, Hawthorn and Fremantle are the sides along with Brisbane in the 8 and then down to Melbourne, but they're only really, well, 1 win out of the top 8 at the moment. Don't forget, we've got a big week coming up. We've got Footy Focus on Thursday night with Ian Cover, Ron Barassi, Mark Harvey and AFL Football Operations Manager Ian Collins. And don't forget next week's live match too, Geelong versus Essendon, the big one from the MCG.
Just turtle it, Gary. Just roll up in the ball.
Gary Lyon, Dermot Brereton, thanks very much. Tim Lane back with you next week. I'm Peter Donegan. Thanks for joining us on Football Feedback.
This has been a Sports AFL production.